You've probably said or thought to yourself at some point, is this really it? Is this all that life is? And when you do, you're pulling back the covers on something profound. The rewards you're getting from your life aren't enough. Without fully realizing it, you've agreed step by step to a life that takes more than it gives. And you've been living according to that agreement for a long time. And you're not alone with this. Because modern life has no natural stopping point, I'm here to help you figure out how this agreement keeps expanding and what to do about it. My style is to speak objectively about what's happening. So let's start with the systems active in your life. We all operate within systems. Your job is a system, your household is a system. Wherever you hold responsibility, that's a system. Your job is the most clear example. You're working on goals that don't reflect reality while being told to do more with less and use AI. Work boundaries have long been blurred. All those notifications that keep you on edge. And when you think about taking a week off, you wonder whether that's a good idea, even though you're going to bring your laptop and be sure to check in. Then there's motherhood, a system that comes with mystery. You can't know what it's going to ask of you. A child's needs change as they do, but your side of the bargain remains the same. You're on the job no matter what. Caregiving is the system that takes vigilance to a new level. Your phone is always on and charged within reach. You wonder whether your mom's new medication is working or whether your dad needs a different approach to PT. You follow up, scenario plan, and second guess yourself. And these are just 3 common systems in women's lives. Your life may cover these or entirely different ones, but what they all have in common is that they extract. And this is because these are systems designed to take as much as possible from you. I get it, that it might feel disloyal to call systems like these extractive, like it means you love the people less or that you're ungrateful. So if my use of the word extraction sounds harsh, think about the systems in your life. They are well organized. And if the challenges you faced from their demands were sporadic or random, that would be different, but they're not. They are persistent. They don't extract from you all the time. So dealing with how you feel about the extraction in your life can be complicated. So let's start here. Let's look at how systems give back. And this is where your attention falls now, so this should be pretty clear already. They offer you engagement, and engagement is powerful. They offer you an identity. You get a role to play, a title, a space for you. We all have an innate need to be needed, and systems fulfill that too. So let's look at particular systems. Your work gives you the opportunity to learn, solve problems, make money, and grow social connection. And depending on what you do, it can also bring a strong sense of purpose. Parenthood brings many rewards. It's a love like none other. And you're participating in someone else's becoming. That's a big deal. Caring for a loved one gives you the chance to feel real purpose, offer protection and comfort, and you connect with them on an entirely new level. But that's not the full story. So let's look at some examples to start to see where extraction is and isn't happening. Let's say that at work, you're assigned to lead a complex project with a ridiculous deadline, but the team is amazing. The hours are crazy, but you're inspired by the process, and you feel like you're making significant contributions. So even with all that effort involved, it's potentially not that extractive for you. But how about this? You get that email informing you that you missed a step on the performance evaluations due yesterday. You have to redo them for your team by the close of business, and your calendar is stacked with meetings. That's very extractive. Now let's say you're your mom's caregiver. You spend an afternoon with her and get into stories you've never heard before. You laugh a lot. It's peaceful and happy, not that extractive. But instead, let's say she's having surgery at a big teaching hospital. You're scared, you're nervous, and you're anticipating what she's going to need in coming days. Very extractive. So you're holding the same role, but the cost to you is different. So now you're thinking it's inappropriate or wrong to consider your needs when your mom is the one in surgery. It's not. I'm saying that both storylines here are valid. The main story is that your mother has real needs. Your concern and competence will keep you where you need to be to help her recover. But don't forget the other story happening at the same time, how objectively extractive this experience is for you. And this is a crisis in just one system in your life. So not every day brings major surgery. But when you're not able to recognize the extraction you face, whether it's in a hospital waiting room or needing to revise your departmental budget for the 5th time, you're actually undermining your performance. Because the reality is that too often you're revising that budget from the hospital waiting room, cursing the weak Wi-Fi. And you're the only one who knows that all of this is hitting you at once. And this is why it's important to be objective about the fact that it's happening, to recognize it. This doesn't make you disloyal. It's the most clear-eyed thing you can do. And that's because understanding what your roles are actually asking of you is how you ensure you're protecting what matters most to you. So extraction isn't constant and it isn't uniform, but it is persistent. So that means you have to pay attention to it. And when you don't, and you're the only one who can, the effects build over time. You know what this feels like, and so do I. When my kids were growing from preschool through middle school, I was facing a lot of extraction. I would let my resentment fly. So I'm a person who's attuned to language and how I show up, and I'd notice I would complain too much, overreact, and just feel frustrated all the time. Outside, I looked very on track. But inside, I wasn't the person I wanted to be. It felt like things were getting out of control. So I did what you've no doubt tried. A big one is getting more sleep. This is very important, but I found it wasn't enough for me to feel better. And I knew that was true because even when I could go to bed early and feel great waking up, I feel the benefit go out the window as soon as the wheels started turning again. And what I know is this: sleep helps when you're tired. But the depletion from extractive systems goes beyond feeling tired. There are many forms of depletion: feeling like you lack control, feeling overstimulated, drained from too much social performance. It's a long list, and it's very personal. So when you're working across the systems that extract from you, the types of depletion vary, and it stacks like cards. So the kind of depletion I know I was feeling was a collection of things. And often for me, being physically tired wasn't actually in the mix. So it was hard to know what to do to address how I was feeling. I wasn't willing to give up on my goals. To be less ambitious didn't seem like the answer. I was already good about figuring out what should be on my list and what shouldn't. That wasn't really the problem. So if you're like I was, instead of feeling present, productive, creative, and powerful, you feel pressured, rushed, burdened, and even afraid to speak. I've worked hard to figure out how to counteract the experience of complex depletion from extractive systems. We're not trained to do this or even consider it, so I found a new way of thinking. Deciding what all this really means for women like me and like you meant looking at what we say about these kinds of challenges now. I've spent decades in communications, and I can say that collectively, we've struggled with the language to describe how to avoid depletion. Work-life balance has had its fall from grace because it is definitely the wrong frame. Work-life integration sounds better, but this creates problems too. And that's because now you're asking these extractive systems to cooperate, and they're not set up for that. They don't even know the other systems exist. It's also challenging to consider work and life as different things. Because for most women, what gets called life is just unpaid work. And by this, I mean managing the jammed weekend calendar, your mom's 6 doctor's appointments, and of course, the never-ending mental load. So recommendations like committing to log off at 6 p.m. don't relieve you from the extraction that's waiting for you from the other systems in your life. Then there are the relentless ideas for how to optimize, the zillion life hacks, how to get more done in less time. In other words, how to serve the systems more effectively. Say no more often has made the rounds of advice, and of course I agree with it on many levels. There are definitely things you could decline. But it's a tough strategy to embrace because what do you actually say no to? It's hard to see beyond everything on your list that is not negotiable. Going grocery shopping with your father, the board meeting, your child's recital. These are the aspects of the life that you've built that you readily accept, even if some extraction comes along with them. So these aren't concepts that solve the challenge. I struggle with these frames because they present the world as unchangeable. The system's interests are always primary, never yours. And that leaves you to direct your attention to figuring out how to take on more extraction. And unmistakably, that's a route to burnout. How does this happen? How do we end up here? I can see how it happens incrementally. Extraction is persistent, and the non-negotiables bring extraction that adds up. Motherhood brings a lot of compromises. You learn to adjust or just give up, from putting morning errands on hold to preserve a nap schedule, to rushing out of work for school pickup, and dealing with how sports eat entire weekends. It's a long list. And at each stage, you pause or scale back your goals in order to support your child's goals. And you just accept that as part of the deal. Caregiving can come to you suddenly or be a role that evolves over time. But either way, it brings a lot of compromises too. It depends greatly on the relationship and the exact situation, but pretty much all caregivers have to adjust to the burdens of worry and vigilance, dealing with unscheduled demands and uncertainty. You get used to canceling plans or being more patient than you ever thought you could. Work teaches you early on that the extra mile is a good thing. You seek new opportunities, you grow and work harder at each level. And the uncertainty that's running across work environments today means you're striving to uphold your value to the organization. Each of these systems teaches you to compromise. But it's actually not really a compromise. It's a one-way thing. Your needs have to make way for theirs. So as you're making them, most of these decisions feel reasonable enough. You're making them to get through the phase you're in. And part of what guides your decisions is thinking they're just for now. But across years, the tendency to accept these kinds of incremental adjustments just becomes how you operate, and they build on each other, becoming how your life is designed. And at some point, you're no longer compromising with your life. You've compromised yourself out of it. And all of that extraction is leaving you feeling depleted. You're saying that this is just what adulthood looks like. I disagree. I see it as an unexamined response to what the extractive systems are doing to you. And it's leading women to burnout at a rate that should alarm all of us. This is what this series is about. Examining that response and making moves that help you sustain yourself and enjoy your life. no matter what life brings. There is a way to engage what the extractive systems are doing to you. It's called the vitality gap. The vitality gap is the deficit between what gets extracted from you and what your life gives back. And when you let the extraction pile up, especially across the systems in your life, the vitality gap widens. Vitality is the source of the life you want to lead. It's really everything. It's load-bearing. Think of it like the foundation of a skyscraper. And without it, delivering on your system's demands feels hard. I say vitality is everything because it comes from many parts of you. But it's hard to focus on taking action when you say your vitality is everything, so let's go down a level. Your vitality comes from your vitality reserves. Your vitality reserves build and maintain your vitality. Your vitality reserves identify how you're happiest, most fulfilled, what you need to experience to have the greatest sense of calm and personal agency, how you find inspiration, how you're engaged, acting and feeling like yourself on your own and best terms. They are unique to you, and you know them like your name, and it's the most important list you can write. Later in this series, you'll learn how to do this, but for now, let's keep building out this concept. Your vitality reserves make your vitality possible, and when you don't tend to them, that's when the vitality gap comes into your life. So remember that the vitality gap is the deficit that comes when your life is taking more than it's giving back. I'm using a lot of terms here, so let's look at an example. Let's talk about Grace. So anyone who knows Grace knows she loves playing soccer. It's a great way for her to build her vitality. But I'm going to reverse engineer Grace's love for soccer to specify how soccer builds her vitality. So Grace's love for soccer comes from how much she values athleticism, teamwork, and competitiveness. She feels a strong sense of purpose because of the position she plays, and it's also because she's a great mentor for other players. She also loves the chance to be outside. Getting on the field is the best part of her week. And that's because soccer builds these vitality reserves for her. Did you hear the list? Competitiveness, teamwork, athleticism, having a sense of purpose, being a mentor, getting outside. But then Grace has to hit the road for work. She misses a couple of games and a few practices, and she could start to feel desperate to get back on the field. Grace is feeling the effects of extraction, and she's missing this way to build her vitality. So Grace could get stuck there. She could tell herself that extraction is running the show, and she can't get what she needs because she can't play soccer. But Grace is smarter than that. She knows her vitality reserves come with her, and that she can serve them in different ways. So she turns to pub trivia to get some competition. She addresses her need for athleticism by finding an interesting workout she can do before the day starts instead of just settling for the hotel gym. If Grace were to believe soccer is the only way to build her vitality, she'd be falling for the trap of all or nothing thinking, and that never works. Instead, when you know what your vitality reserves are and you respect them as true for you, you're positioned to have control over the effects of the extraction in your life. You're positioned to avoid the vitality gap. Your experiences build and drain your vitality reserves at different times and in different ways. And there's no simple rule, like something taking a lot of effort means your vitality reserves get drained faster. It's more nuanced than that. So let's meet Lauren. She's been assigned to represent her company at a major trade show. And this isn't her gig. She's in research, not marketing. And she finds the noise and the chaos to be overstimulating. There are parties every night, and after the first one, the social performance really just tires her out. But Lauren's learning a ton from the breakout sessions, and she's meeting and connecting with colleagues she wouldn't otherwise see. And she met the CEO for the first time, even walking her across the show floor and building a relationship. And this is why naming your vitality reserves is so helpful. Looking at Lauren's experience, she'd find the love of learning, sincere social connection, and leadership is fueling her vitality. But being in crowds and loud places and not having control over her schedule really depletes her. So when Lauren can view the experience through this lens, she's ready for the next trade show. She can tune into the signals from her vitality reserves and not struggle. And too often, we do struggle with the extraction we face, and we miss the aspects of the things that are truly building us. And that's why being objective about what's working for you and what's not keeps you in the right place. Your vitality reserves send you signals well before the vitality gap becomes your reality. It's important that you listen to them, especially because you're the only one who can hear them. And that's the challenge, because the extractive systems are so loud with their demands. And all those compromises you've made over the course of time mean you're really good at ignoring the signals from your vitality reserves. That needs to change, and this series will help you learn how. I've talked about the extractive systems and how they create the vitality gap, but the vitality gap doesn't only happen when life is intense, and it's not attached to a particular life stage. It's true when you're totally overloaded, and it's true when the extractive systems have backed off. So when you're in the thick of it, extractive systems are at their max, and you're walking around asking, is this really my life? You're just handing over your vitality reserves. And this is when you're in the ultimate trap. You're so vital that you're neglecting your own vitality. And this leaves its mark. So when things change and your roles aren't as demanding and extraction is either slower or in some ways disappeared, you find yourself asking, what do I do now? You've played the vital, therefore no vitality role, but your life is different now, and you're left feeling unsure what to even make of it. You're so detached from your vitality that you don't know how to work with it. So these are different stages, but that root is the same. It's when you realize that what you do know is how to maximize your output, but what you don't know is how to build your vitality in ways that actually sustain you. So let's talk about how to fix that. Your job doesn't know about your kid doesn't know about your aging parent, and none of them knows that the others even exist. And each is pulling from the same source, and you're the only one who can see the whole picture. And that's where we'll go next. The masterclass is at thefunreset.com.